Let's go Broncos! Are we about to witness one of the most unexpected moves in recent Denver Broncos history? We might. The buzz around the league suggests that the Broncos are at least in the conversation when it comes to acquiring a wide receiver who was once one of the most dominant forces in the game. I'll give you all the details. But first, make sure you hit that like button if you believe the Denver Broncos will make it to the next Super Bowl. Man, I totally believe in that. I hope I can experience that joy next season. Now I want to ask you a question. Do you think the Denver Broncos should sign Davante Adams? Yes or no? Comment below. The NFL free agency period is upon us, and speculation is heating up. But is this a real possibility or just another rumor destined to fade into the noise of the offseason? Broncos fans, buckle up, because this is going to get interesting. First, let's get the facts straight. Davante Adams is officially on the market after his time with the Jets didn't pan out as many expected. The two main theories about where he might land are simple. He either follows Aaron Rodgers to his next destination or makes a move back to the West Coast, closer to his California roots. And while Denver isn't exactly a West Coast city, it has been mentioned as a possible landing spot, including in a recent Bleacher Report article. That alone is enough to make us take this idea seriously. But would this make sense for the Broncos? James Palmer, a respected NFL insider, weighed in, suggesting that Denver could afford to bring in Adams under the right conditions. If the team extends Courtland Sutton, which wouldn't necessarily be an outrageous expense, then adding another veteran receiver to the mix might not be out of the question. The key point here is that the rest of the Broncos receiving core is still on rookie contracts, which means financially, there's some flexibility. Now, let's talk about what kind of player Adams is at this stage of his career. There's no denying that he was once one of the most dominant receivers in the league, but the numbers show a decline. In 2022, he posted 14 touchdowns, a monster season. But in the last 2 years, that number has dropped to 8 per season. That's not necessarily a death sentence for a receiver's career, but it is a sign that he might not be the same player he was in Green Bay or even in his first season with the Raiders. There's also the question of fit. Adams has spent most of his career catching passes from either Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr, two quarterbacks he had chemistry with. When he was thrown into unfamiliar situations, the results were mixed. If he joins the Broncos, he'll be stepping into a new offense with a young quarterback. Would that be a good combination, or would it end up being an experiment that doesn't work out? One thing is clear, Adams won't come cheap. While he likely won't command a top 10 receiver salary at this stage, he's still expected to land a deal somewhere in the range of $20 to $25 million for a one-year contract. That's a big commitment for a player who might not be the game-changing weapon he once was. And if the Broncos are going to make a move like this, they have to be absolutely certain it's worth it. But Adams isn't the only receiver linked to Denver. Another name that keeps popping up is Brandon Aiyuk from the 49ers. This one is a little more complicated. San Francisco has already extended Aiyuk once, but there are whispers that they might be having second thoughts. If that's true, they could be open to trading him, but at what cost? Acquiring Aiyuk would likely mean giving up a second or third round pick, along with taking on the remaining portion of his contract. That's a significant investment. And while Aiyuk is a talented player, he's coming off a serious knee injury, both an ACL and MCL tear. That's not something to overlook. Even if he recovers fully, there's always a risk that he won't be the same explosive player he was before the injury. So if the Broncos are looking to add a veteran receiver, which move makes the most sense? On one hand, Adams is the safer bet in terms of knowing what you're getting. He's a proven player with elite talent, and because he's a free agent, signing him wouldn't cost any draft capital. On the other hand, Aiyuk is younger and has more upside if he fully recovers, but he would require giving up assets and taking on a bigger financial commitment in the long run. If it were up to me, I'd lean toward Adams simply because the risk is lower. Give him a one-year deal, see if he can still produce at a high level, and if it doesn't work out, you're not locked into a long-term commitment. With Aiyuk, the injury history and trade cost make it a trickier decision. But that's just one take. Broncos country, what do you think? Should the team go after Adams and add a veteran presence to the receiving core? Or would Aiyuk be the better long-term investment, even with the risks involved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And let's take this conversation a step further, because if the Broncos do decide to pursue either of these receivers, it's not just about talent, money, or availability. It's about what this move says about the team's direction and how it aligns with their long-term goals. Denver is coming off a solid 2024 campaign, one that showed promise but also highlighted areas where improvement is needed. The quarterback situation is obviously a massive factor in all of this. If you're going to invest in surrounding Bo Nix with talent, you have to be certain that the weapons you're adding are the right fit fit for what Sean Payton wants to do offensively. And while Adams or Aiyuk would be big-name additions, would they actually be the best fit for a young quarterback learning the ropes? One argument against adding Adams is that he's always been a go-to-guy type of receiver, someone who thrives when he's the focal point of the passing game. But in Denver's offense, that role doesn't necessarily exist in the same way. Payton prefers to spread the ball around, utilizing different receivers situationally rather than force-feeding one dominant target. Could Adams thrive in a system where he's not the automatic first read on a majority of plays? On the other side of the debate, Aiyuk presents a different challenge. His ability to create separation and make plays after the catch is enticing, but his injury history raises a red flag. We've seen teams take chances on receivers coming off major injuries, only to regret it when they never regain their full explosiveness. Would it be worth spending valuable draft capital on a player who might not be 100% for the start of the season? And then there's the financial aspect. Denver currently has around $34 million in cap space, but that number is fluid. Restructures, cuts, and new signings will shift the landscape. The front office has to be smart about how it allocates those resources. Is it really worth using a significant chunk of that space on a veteran receiver when other areas of the roster also need attention? Let's not forget that the Broncos already have talent at wide receiver. Courtland Sutton remains a reliable option. Jerry Jeudy is still in the picture unless a trade happens, and there's young talent waiting for an opportunity. Adding a veteran like Adams or Aiyuk might help in the short term, but it could also limit opportunities for younger players to develop and contribute. So what's the verdict? Is this the type of move that pushes Denver closer to contention, or is it just a flashy signing that doesn't necessarily translate to success on the field? If we look at recent history, we've seen teams get burned by investing heavily in aging receivers who don't quite live up to expectations. Look at how the Titans brought in DeAndre Hopkins. It wasn't a disaster, but it didn't exactly change their fortunes either. That's why the Broncos need to be extremely calculated if they make this move. They can't afford to swing and miss, especially with a young quarterback they're trying to build around. The worst-case scenario would be committing to Adams or Aiyuk, only to realize that the fit isn't right, and now they've burned cap space or draft capital that could have been used elsewhere. If Denver truly believes they need another weapon, they have to ask themselves, is Adams worth a one-year gamble at $20 million? Or is Aiyuk worth a multi-year investment that could cost a valuable draft pick? Or should they skip both options and trust the development of their current roster? One thing is certain, whatever move the Broncos make will send a clear message about their intentions for 2025. Are they in win-now mode, or are they playing the long game? Broncos country, let's hear it. Do you want to see Adams in orange and blue? Would Aiyuk be worth the risk, or should the team stay patient and focus on other areas? Drop your thoughts below, and let's debate this one. The potential arrival of Davante Adams to the Broncos raises big questions. With a young QB developing, is it worth investing heavily in a veteran like Adams or spending draft capital on Brandon Aiyuk? Adams brings experience without trade costs, while Aiyuk offers youth but comes with injury risks. Denver has cap space to maneuver, but every move signals the team's future direction. Broncos country, what's the best choice? Drop your thoughts below, and let's debate the team's next big move.